All right, first up, early-stage VC firm Picus Capital is planning to invest a corpus of about 200 million euros in India as well as in Southeast Asia. They want to expand their presence in these regions. Let's connect with Mr. Naman Jhawar, who is the partner and head of India and SEA. Thank you so much for taking time out. Let's understand a little bit more about what the game plan is for India and Southeast Asia in particular.
Yeah, so India and Southeast Asia for us remains as one of the promising geography in the future. We have been investing in these markets since 2020, but of course, in the recent years have also increased our allocation. Traditionally, it was in the range of 10 to 15%. We forecast for the next 2 to 3 years to increase this to about 25 to 30%. India, of course, would probably take the lion's share of it, given the prospects around growing geographies, the favorable demographics, and also a very, very large consumer opportunity. So we see this to be as one of our focus geographies. In terms of the sectors that we are quite bullish in India and Southeast Asia, we feel energy and climate is one of the rising sectors. We see very, very interesting tailwinds, pretty similar to the developed markets that we have been operating in 2-3 years back. Very similar tailwinds. We are seeing lots of good policy announcements from the government itself. So that's one of the key sectors for us, followed by SaaS, followed by also healthcare and consumer. So these will be the 4 primary sectors in terms of the strategy. Of course, we like to invest pretty early in terms of startups. So our sweet spot is pre-seed to pre-A. So that continues to be the strategy in terms of the stage of entry. However, we also have just closed our growth fund, and that would be used for doubling down on some of our portfolio companies in the later stages as the portfolio matures.
So tell us a little bit more about this new fund and some of the sectors that you all will be looking at.
Yeah, so this is our second growth fund. It's a 200 million vehicle. We've already announced our first close. We'll be announcing the second close and the final one, shortly this year. That's largely for our follow-on opportunities. It's a global fund, so we don't have separate allocations for different geographies. We invest out of one single fund. And on the early checks, we invest out of a balance sheet. So combined, we are looking at roughly a deployment of 300 to 400 million in the coming 3 to 4 years, out of which about 25 to 30% will be allocated to India and Southeast Asia.
And which companies have you already made investments in India? How are they faring?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we've been investing since 2020 in India. We began our journey here largely in the financial services space. So invested in companies like VRise and Basic Home Loans that are solving affordable lending in the more tier 2, tier 3 segments of India. Then we've also invested in Aspire Digital, which is building on top of UPI rails on the lending play. Also some of the infrastructure plays with companies like Build and Inkle. So that's largely how we've invested in the fintech side of things. Recently, we've also invested in a few enterprise SaaS and infrastructure companies, one in the LLM cybersecurity space, another one in the dev tooling space. Broadly, we remain bullish about sectors like healthcare as well. One of our first investment was in the healthcare space. And apart from this, we've also invested in a few other SaaS companies, one in the contract lifecycle management space, and another one in the compliance, AI-led compliance space.
What are the kind of trends as well that you're seeing when it comes to the different regions in the market in terms of investment?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think so 3-4 areas that we're clearly bullish on India. One is sort of the rising affluent and the related consumption in India. So themes like premiumization, also driving like offline retail. I think that's an interesting space that we are looking at India. I mean, consumer in general remains pretty interesting. It's one of the larger markets in this region, followed by energy and climate. I think we are seeing lots of tailwinds and policy announcements on the whole energy transition, specifically led by solar, but of course, very quickly on the large scale energy efficiency pieces also around manufacturing is an interesting space. And we feel so far, India has been on the curve of deployment of some of these renewable and cleaner assets, but there will be interesting plays that will emerge out of these assets from a more steering capability perspective. So a lot of software and tech oriented plays are also possible on the energy transition space. The third one that we're quite excited about is healthcare. I think we see this sector to be kind of overlooked since quite a few years, and we are now seeing the right side of policy pushes, whether it is ABHA or sort of Ayushman Bharat, a lot of digital infrastructure that we saw in fintech with respect to UPI. So that is again one of the promising sectors, and we're already kind of seeing quite a few of play emerging in this sector. And then finally, I think we are quite bullish on entrepreneurs who are building from day one to the world. And so a lot of the SaaS plays, whether it's on the enterprise infrastructure side or also some of the verticalized and horizontal SaaS plays, given that a lot of entrepreneurs have building this for the second or third time in their sort of career, but also a lot of them have moved from the Valley to India and have deep and entrenched networks to sell it in US and Europe. So that also remains as an exciting sector for us. So yeah, broadly, enterprise software, healthcare, energy and climate, and consumer, these would be the top four areas that we see interesting trends in India.
Sean, share with us before we let you go what the long-term view is.
Yeah, we continue to be sort of backing really passionate founders who are solving massive problems in big markets, and we are a tech oriented investor. I think for us, strategy wise, globally we operate in all pretty much major geographies, including US, Europe, India, and Southeast Asia. As I've already mentioned, India and Southeast Asia to remain more and more focused for the fund, given the favorable sort of market dynamics that we're seeing in this region. And we continue to kind of build from the start that we had since investing in 2020. Currently, our AUM is close to about $1 billion. In the next few years, we hope to take this to 10 to $15 billion in the next few years.
Thanks so much for joining in. All right.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.